everyone. It is a little after 5:30. Welcome to the October 10th Borough of Gettysburg Stormwater Authority meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. I have no welcoming or opening remarks. Let's just get right to business. We have the approval of the agenda, minutes, and other business. And as we do every month, we take it in one motion, a motion to approve the agenda as presented, a motion to approve all bills and payrolls as presented, and a motion to approve the September 11th meeting minutes. So does anyone have any comments, questions on any of those three items? Chad, you do.
Yes, I got one thing. Karen asked me to take a look at these. You did a great job, by the way, Karen. The only thing that I was suggesting is just a choice of words for the stormwater ordinance discussion.
Page?
On page 2 of 4.
Okay.
It's actually the top of page 3 of 4. I think the word care, about DEP caring, maybe that's a choice of words thing. I'm not sure exactly how that was presented, but it would be better said that DEP does not regulate anything under 1 acre. I think they do care.
Whatever.
So aside from that, I think they were well done.
Yeah. Okay. I think we all agree to make that. Yeah, it could have been, because I think Chad said it, but let's change it to the suggestion. Terminology, okay. So we'll, if that's okay, we'll proceed with that edit. Any other questions, comments on the bills, payroll, minutes, agenda? Not hearing any, I will make a motion. I'll make the motion to accept all three of those items. A second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, it passes, thank you. Next, we have public comment. There is no public here, so therefore no comment. We have a special presentation on the 2024 budget. Charles, you're up.
All right. It's October, which means it's budget season. So, as we all know, the authority is really a utility. And we collect our revenue through assessed fees. Essentially, we charge $100 per equivalent residential unit ERU. So before we get into the specifics of the 2024 draft or proposed budget, I wanted to just give a high-level view of where we've been since we started GBSWA in 2019. So you can see that year we had a budget of 0 and we anticipated spending 0. But actually that year we collected $253,000 and spent just a little bit more than that. Subsequent years, we budgeted $505 in 2020, collected $355. The actual collected was $766 and spent was $165. Why the big difference there? Certain years we anticipate collecting grant revenue. Other years we don't. So we actually did see some grant revenue come in 2020, land studies being one, but we did not actually have our largest expenses as it related to the Culp's Run project in 2020. That's why actual expenditures were only $165,000. That changed in the subsequent years of 2021 and 2022, where Culp's Run stream restoration project was completed. So while revenues were not meeting expenses those last year, especially 2022, that explains the difference in what was collected and spent. So you can see the surpluses in green and the deficits in red. So overall, for the history of existence for GBSWA, we are running just over $500,000 surplus. Year to date, we are collecting just about $497,000. Deborah, I think we're about, what, 90-ish% collected for the year. We can dig into that when we get into the financials in a little bit. But we don't have any big projects that we're spending money on this year, so we've only spent $134,000 year to date. Moving forward, if things move as we anticipate, we're going to have a significant surplus to work with next year, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So anticipated revenue sources in 2024, we have various departments. 331, it's fines and forfeits. This is essentially any liens that are filed before delinquent stormwater collection fees. We anticipate about $9,400 being collected next year. We could potentially have some interest earnings depending on if we move some money into CDs before we spend some money on various projects. We anticipate some state operating grants. We got the big the 902 grant. Was that $308,000, something like that, Deborah?
For which one?
For state operating grants. So 6,800 of that is being assigned to the Stormwater Authority. The other 300,000 is actually being allotted to the borough's budget for a leaf vac truck, and we'll talk about that during the budget for the council after this meeting. Charges for services are essentially reimbursements for engineering fees, those types of things, and the big one there, $462,000, is our stormwater assessed fees. And you can see on the pie chart, right now we are currently operating with a 2% discount, a face value, or 10% penalty. The reason I wanted to talk about this a little bit more, in the next proposed fee structure, I know there was some discussion last month regarding the 2%. I think it's worth revisiting that discussion simply because there was some information that might not have been aware of last month, and that is we currently are using tax software for utility billing, which is an issue when it comes to the 2% discount. The functionality of the software has never really worked well because utility tax software is meant for taxes. Utility software is not meant to have discounts. So we're moving to true utility billing software next year. That software will not have the ability to have a 2% discount in it. It's much like when you get your GMA bill every month or every 3 months. You do not see an option to pay at a 2% discount on that. It's a utility. You pay it at par or 10% penalty if you pay late. So if the board wants to maintain the discount, essentially decreasing your $100 ERU to $98, we could certainly do that. We would just have to set the new ERU rate at $98 for the 2024-2025 billing cycle. Or you could have a built-in fee increase that's not necessarily painful for most folks, and just do away with the 2% discount, which you can see here would raise just under $9,000 additional dollars. So that's a question for the board for your consideration moving forward. On the expense side, this is pretty standard to where we are this year. We are anticipating traditional payments on staff salaries and benefits. Obviously, we'll have some legal expenses, engineering expenses. We'll have insurances to pay, some utilities. We actually will have to pay some utilities on behalf of the borough for use of office space, things like that. But again, the largest expense will be set aside for capital improvements, just over $285,000 for 2024. We do have a lot of projects coming up in the next couple of years. And we have one really large one, which is in the multi-million-dollar range, which we really have not had the opportunity to discuss at length. And that's going to have to be a conversation between this board and the Borough Council, as well as it relates to the Tiber Walls conversation, which we'll have to get into at some point, but not for tonight necessarily. So if you add up the surplus that's currently in the stormwater's checking account, we'll add the additional funds set aside for next year's budget, which means by the end of our billing cycle in 2024, we will have just over $1 million in reserves for projects that the stormwater wants to engage in. So that's a high-level view of the proposed 2024 budget. Next month, I'll give you this graphical interpretation of the budget in spreadsheet form with a little more detail for your review, but for our purposes tonight, this is a high-level view of the proposed 2024 budget. Questions or discussion?
Discussion. I thought at the last meeting we talked about the 2% discount and we decided to continue that.
We have. Now, I think, Charles, you have to get down in the weeds a little bit because this was new. Charles and I spoke the other day, and I said the same thing. You know, we're happy with the 2%, and then it came up that the software vendors that you're looking at don't have that option?
Will not have a 2% discount option. It just, the utility software does not work that way. Our current vendor took a tax billing software and essentially retrofitted it for our purposes, and it's never really worked well because of that. So if the board wishes to continue the 2% discount, the only way the new software will work with that is if you decrease the actual ERU rate to $98 instead of $100.
And they do not have an option in their software packages for 2%? I mean, they don't sell another, no.
Yeah.
Not for utility billing.
They have options for penalties, though.
Yes, and liens. So
So why don't you set it at $98 and issue a $2 penalty?
I'm sorry?
Set it at $98 and then assess a $2 penalty.
Well, the penalty would be the 10% that you.
So you already have a penalty. You don't
Right,
want two
yeah.
layers of penalties.
Right.
That would be confusing.
Right.
I don't know. We talked about it pretty much at length the last time,
We
but
did.
keeping it, and if you look at the actual revenues we brought in last year, I'd say 95% of them took the 2% discount,
Right.
just off the top of my head,
Mhm.
which means to me it's significant to
Right.
a fair number of people. So if you set the rate at 98, it doesn't. I think the key is discount. They think they're getting
A deal.
a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though it's only a $2 deal. And to me, we ought to be keeping that, you know, based on the success of getting that much money in that fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does go to how the public interprets it. We talked about that notion of, you know, that people will just be irritated they don't have it, but also the concept that some of your larger property owners or LLCs that have large pieces of property, they may elect not to pay until that last month.
Right.
You know, I don't know if that'll cause a big, you know,
Right.
problem at this point, but when you're doing your presentation on the budget, the one thing I noted is that, you know, it looks really impressive, right, that the amount of money that we've run as a surplus in these last few years, but like the authority didn't exist before that.
Right.
And we started with $0 and, you know, a fund reserve, so.
Well, we've been really prudent about the
So
way
it's
we
pretty
spent
important to
money.
have that $500,000. It's not like, oh, we ran the surplus and,
Oh,
you know, just
okay.
from the public's, you know, standpoint, understand that like that is the entire bank account for the stormwater authority.
Absolutely.
That will get eaten up very quickly once we get
Yeah.
into some big
Yeah,
projects.
Exactly.
Take long.
After Charles mentioned this to me the other day, I thought, oh, boy. And I've been thinking, and I think I mentioned it to Wes, that, you know, the way out of this one, if truly we cannot get a 2% discount, which is a nice thing, and we do get the money quicker, is the notion of, here's my idea. Next year, we make it $98, and the ERU is $98. The following year, we make it 100. All right, so we explain to people what's happening. We give them everybody gets a 2% discount, basically. It costs us, what, $10,000, a little bit under 10,000 bucks. It's not gonna break the bank. I think you're right, Pat. I think we're gonna get our money later. We're still gonna get it, but we're gonna get it later. And then, and then this may be the most unpopular. I make it a 3-year thing. I've mentioned last month. And then the third year, we increase our rates 10%, because we've not increased rates at all since the beginning of this. We'd be into what, about 8 years into the program without an increase. So then ERU would go to 110 with no discount. Because what we're doing now is not sustainable. It's long term. I mean, people are not able to pay a lot for stormwater, and nor do we want them to. But at some point, there has to be money borrowed, I think, by the borough and the stormwater authority to get some of these very large, multi-million-dollar projects done. So that's just to throw out there. We're not making decisions tonight, but something to, you know, think about and talk about if we cannot get a discount in the software.
Well, that's the part I don't understand. That seems to me a very simple
What's that?
software problem to fix.
Seems hard to believe.
Yeah.
I'm only telling you what our vendors are telling us.
Right.
And
Yeah, I mean, like,
that's-
I don't think I pay any utility bills that way, but I couldn't tell you how many people that I pay that use systems that I get a cash discount at. My dentist, I get a cash discount.
Right, if you pay care.
5%.
Yeah.
That's how they structure it. So it just seems odd that they have billing software that's not capable of that.
Right. Charles, you know, one of the things is, have you had the workaround conversation with them to say, is there a way to work around this and still get the benefit of some other bells and whistles that you guys need?
It came up in our multiple conversations. They've been on site. All of them that we've been interviewing have been on site. So none of them were excited about the opportunity to try to rewrite their software for utilities with a 2% discount.
So it becomes an issue almost like anything can be done, but there'll be a cost.
Correct.
Have they put a number to the cost?
It'll be about $10,000 for next year.
You mean to
For-
buy the software,
Yeah.
not for an adjustment.
For an adjustment to the software?
Oh,
If they didn't give you a number for that.
we
We
didn't
haven't
even have
talked to
those
them
types
about
of conversations.
I'm sticking my neck out here, but I think from what I'm hearing from this board, I think that's a number that we probably need to hear,
Okay.
all right? What does it look like, and how much is it gonna cost us? And will it work?
Or to Wes's point, is there a possibility for kind of the backdoor is from a layered penalty? That perhaps the par value is 98, and if you don't pay within,
It doesn't seem like a
45
big deal,
days
but
that you do, you know.
the public's reaction's not gonna be positive, and I do think you'll have large payers that'll hold out.
I just think it's pretty evident by our experience that it's usually popular saving 2%.
here,
Yeah, you can look at the pie chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
it's,
timing.
90%.
430,000 comes in with the 2% discount and only 12 pay face value. I mean, it just seems to me we need the word discount in there, not rearranging the fee structure to end up with the same revenue. It's a.
Well,
it's
let's see
a,
how, let's see how limiting the software is, or how expensive it is. I've had experience with this. If there's a special rewrite, then the future upgrades are going to be sometimes very interesting and not right, because the future upgrades usually don't take into consideration special rewrites and these sorts of things. But I think it's worth for the board to, you know, to hear that,
Yeah. Or,
find out what the numbers are.
or another software company.
Well, this becomes a tail wagging the dog, too. I get that.
Yeah, no,
because-
they've been through a long process.
Yes, this is
Looking at
nothing that-
enterprise software, like, I don't think I could ask them to.
No. No, this-
And they've gotten to a point where they kind of have two potential options,
Mhm.
and they have one that they like, and I'm not over
Yeah.
this. Been a bit of a journey.
Hate to make you do more homework, but I think that's the way we're going. Do some more
Okay.
homework.
Anything else?
Okay? Deborah, payments.
Payments, we are down to approximately 290 parcels that have not paid to date, which is around maybe $47,000 to $50,000 that needs to still come in. Since we changed the structure from last year of when payments are due, I think folks are just waiting till they get the reminder letter possibly. So with that many, and they're currently in the delinquent stages, if we have to mail out our, and this might be a question for Adam, we send out the notice that you have 30 days to pay or we're gonna file the lien, can we do, because at 290 parcels at 63 cents for first class mail, it's $182. And if we have to send that certified as well right now, that comes out to just under $3,000.
Sure.
So I don't know if we can send out the first class with a date you have to pay or you'll get the lien, and then 30 days later follow it up with the certified? Or do they actually have to go out on the same day or same, as long as the letter or the end date says you have to pay or you'll get a lien on this date? I was thinking that the first class will be kind of a reminder and then follow up with the certified. I don't know if we can stagger them.
Gotcha. So, in order to collect some of these additional costs that ride along with the lien, they have to get it certified. If you want to send, and this is kind of a cost-benefit question, if you think if you send a first class, basically a courtesy letter, way ahead, as a way to kind of maybe hack that number back to 50, you know, or 80 or whatever.
And that's our average, it's around 40
It has
liens that
been.
go out, so 290's pretty high right now, so.
If you cut it, if you do a first class courtesy, kind of above and beyond letter that you want to do, you know, you could possibly cut that back significantly, and save on some of those certified costs. You do still have to send a certified letter. Historically, what the authority's done is send that letter first class and certified and have that be all at once so that you don't have to do multiple mailings. But if you think hitting them first with this additional first class letter will kind of
'Cause I
shake
think
some
a
of
lot
this
of
loose.
them, right, are gonna pay.
You may want to consider doing that.
Yeah,
I mean, it might end up that half those people, or more than half, will pay when they get
Right.
certified anyway, and then you had an additional mailing that,
and we're not
But you
gonna
don't
be
know
able to
until
really
you do it.
recoup those costs, yeah.
We've never done that before. I
We
think
have sent a reminder
did
out
last year.
before, yes.
Okay, was it last year? Because this conversation seems
Right, because we kind
familiar.
of switched the billing dates and the time frames that we're due, and we kind of wanted to let people know that, and I think maybe they're still on that calendar time, I don't know.
If I recall, and this is just off the top of my head, and I could be wrong on this, if I recall, under the statute, you have to give them X number of days notice first class. I believe it's 30.
Yeah,
and then you have to give 10 days certified.
okay,
And what you have historically done is sent them at the same time,
right,
30 days out, to give them more time, but also then they get both. Instead of doing separate mailings, you send them all out. So if you do an additional, you're still gonna have to do them both
Right.
again.
okay, cause I didn't know if we
Still gonna
could
have to
date
do,
them the
you know,
same.
You do, if you do a first class now, even later, you still have to send first class and certified again.
Still would at the same time, okay, that's what I wasn't sure about, cause that's
why I'm
kind of,
getting at
Right.
a cost benefit.
Right.
specific.
cause I think we'll get a lot of those fees in once we send out the reminder, because it's just a little higher than our average over the last 4 years, so
Yeah, I mean, what's a first class stamp, 50?
63 cents.
63
Okay.
cents, yeah. Or 62.
Certified is $9.56.
Yeah, so, yeah, you could do the math and figure how many people you'd have to get to pay from the courtesy to make it worth saving in the certified.
Right. So, do you want me to send out a reminder, or? And then
Willing
when
to
is
reward.
there-
I mean, I don't, I mean, other than your time and the additional postage expense and paper.
And that's
I think-
$182 just for the postage.
Right, I mean,
If you save
if you get
20,
two-
yeah, you're,
Oh, if you get 20 back, you're more than covered. All the
And then
expense.
we also need to determine when we're gonna have that final drop dead date to process the liens. So we can include that in the reminder letter, I
and,
believe.
and I, and I wanna just make clear for purposes of, dispelling any ambiguity here. If you do a courtesy thing, the authority's gonna eat that. That's
Right.
not something that you will turn
Never
around and
get
say to
back,
people.
right.
Bill,
right.
okay.
I mean, you can recoup that for the ones that are leaned, but you're not gonna recoup that for these 290 people, or even if it cuts
Right.
it down to 100. If you send out 100 30-day
Right.
letters and 60 of them pay,
You're not getting.
you're not getting
right,
that back either.
right.
You only recoup the mailing cost for the ones that actually get reduced to a lien.
Okay,
I think sending it out, telling them it's a courtesy letter, that this is due soon, please pay, whatever, verbiage you wanna use, is it worth,
I think it would save us a
It's
lot
worth
if
trying.
we
Yeah.
did that.
And then analyze it, I mean, look at the data, so next year, you'll
Mhm.
know whether recommended or not. Let's see how many actually pay.
Yeah, 'cause, yeah, okay. And I'll work with Adam on the letter. I'll send the
Okay.
draft to you to make sure, 'cause I wanna have that end date, that liens will be processed and filed on this date. This is a courtesy letter. Please
Right.
pay immediately, to
Right.
make sure that that's done, to avoid the processing, or however you wanna word that, but I just wanna make sure that drop dead date is in there, because people are gonna probably wait till that date to pay.
And there's certain
Potentially.
information that has to be in the official 30-day
Right.
/ 10-day letter. This can, I mean, you want it to be well-written, obviously, and say what it needs to say. But this is an additional step. You can say really whatever you want, however you want
Yeah,
it,
it
as long
doesn't-
as it's accurate.
It doesn't have to have use the same terms as you
Mhm.
would in the 30-day.
Okay.
So it can be a little informal, but.
Right, 'cause the 30-day has final notice and.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
And then
let's try it.
yeah. And I just, public outreach, we received the grant from Adams County and did another workshop and had a nice turnout there. I think we had 21 folks that showed up, and 2 people bought additional barrels, so we sold 3 additional barrels at cost. So I have been selling some to people that couldn't make the workshop, because in order to get the free barrel, you have to attend and listen to the MS4 spiel.
Right.
So that's been kind of replenishing our public outreach funds, so I think we kind of balanced out that in the budget with getting some of the barrels paid for and back.
Good.
And we've given out, I think we're close to, I don't know, maybe 90 to a little over 100. I have to double check, but we've given some out. We did a little demonstration at the college, and we gave them one for their garden, and
Mhm.
we gave Gara one when we did the farmer's market and public outreach there. So
Good.
we're kind of donating to folks that are kind of, opening it up to help us out with the public outreach and education, so. And then we are also going to the PML conference, November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We're actually doing our demonstration, I believe, at 1:30 or 2 o'clock on Wednesday. So we're going to do a workshop there and for their sustainability conference. at the Wyndham, so. I think that's all I have.
As I recall, that sustainability conference, you guys are up first,
Yes, we're like the
first day.
opening thing for the first day for the conference.
I'm checking my schedule, but how do you, if any of us want to go or
I
listen?
think you have to pay to go,
Okay.
and it's one fee, I think it was maybe $87 for the 3 days,
Okay,
but we're allowed, Karen and I are going for free because we're presenting,
Okay.
but anybody else that wanted to go, they want you to pay. So I said, what is the fee for the rest of the class or the next day? And she's like, well, it's all the same. It's just one fee for all 3 days, so
I'll have to
technically,
think
I
about
guess
it.
we're
I'll
not
have to
free
think
because
about
we
that one.
paid.
yeah, okay.
So you
could
could, I
be a
mean, you
presenter.
could probably come to just that possibly as
That's all.
a helper potentially, but
But, okay,
you wouldn't be able to stay for, the
okay.
other
I-
things, so.
I got it. I
Okay.
got it. Thank you, thank you. Any more on liens?
Won't
Okay,
be
I
there.
didn't think so. Jacob Spears, are you here today? Chad is.
Sorry to disappoint.
Oh, jeez. We missed Scooter Spears, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jacob got sick today, so I am pinch hitting, and I was able to get out of my football coaching obligations. So
Oh.
you get me again.
Okay.
All
Welcome.
right. So the Bream Alley wall that remains on our agenda. The big ticket item there, I think I did send out an email, so probably most are aware of this, is that the Commonwealth Financing Authority tabled the decisions on the grants again till November is their next meeting. So we still don't know if the H2O grant that we applied for to help fund that project is going to be awarded or not. Regardless, we're pushing forward with the design. That's pretty much done. Our engineers were sealing the plans today, and the DEP permit will be submitted for that. So the next step then for us is to reduce the permit drawings to contract drawings, which we'll be providing to Buchart Horn, who is Gettysburg Municipal Authority's engineer, and they'll be bidding that with their interceptor. Their goal is to have everything together ready to bid this project by the end of this year. So I think we're planning on schedule for meeting their obligation, their deadline for that. Of course, we'll have to see what DEP, if DEP has any comments on the permit drawings. And then the only other thing is that there is one property owner, it's across from Wolf Alley, where the Bream Alley wall starts to turn into a radius where we're going to need an easement from that property owner in order to be able to get that wall. So that'll be my next thing on the to-do list. I'm going to be reaching out to that property owner, make sure we can get access to the property to be able to build a wall. It's where it starts to do a radius where the wall's kind of failing there at the end.
So that
It's
their
on.
wall there at that property is failing?
Yep. So I'll be working on getting that easement over the next couple of months. But aside from that, the design's going well. We're ahead of schedule, ahead of budget on it. So just wanted to give you a quick update, and stay tuned for news from the Commonwealth Financing Authority.
That property's the one on West Middle Street.
Right.
Yeah, it faces West Middle. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And it would be backing up to
And
the other side of the creek is Wolf Alley.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Thank you, Chad. MS4 permit submittal?
Yeah, so that was submitted to DEP. I know Deborah had some involvement there. Jessica Fieldhouse from CS Davidson kind of takes the lead of that for me. A lot of the MS4 permitting, in case you aren't aware, gets done on CS Davidson's, it's called CS Datum, is our software program where we keep everything. We keep all of the inspection reports. DEP knows how to access that program. It's an interactive tool that has that right there for them. That tool has been tested by DEP. In case there's ever an audit or something, that's our clearinghouse for where all of our paperwork is. It's been submitted to DEP. It's been accepted by DEP. We did get a response that they've accepted it. I don't anticipate them having any issues. They haven't for past several years. I understand that they are going to be scrutinizing some of the counties closer to the Susquehanna River a little bit harder as a result of the settlement between the Chesapeake Bay and Pennsylvania. But Adams County is not on that list. So at this point, we're doing good. We will be providing
and update to them by the end of, our permit cycle ends that next year. So at the end of next year, we'll be reapplying for a new 5-year permit. Again, I don't anticipate anything, knock on wood, changing in terms of compliance regulation requirements. So our Culps Run project has more than fulfilled our obligation for our pollutant reductions. We're gonna have our stormwater ordinance updated by then. So I think we're in good terms with DEP.
Okay. Comments? Okay. Time for public comment. No public, no comment. Before we adjourn, I would just like to say, next steps, Chad, when it comes to a project, maybe next meeting, whether it be November or December, we need to talk about what that project list, if that's changed any, the numbers, I'm thinking particularly on that list, and any RRRs that we have to do. Karen, can you make sure that these things get on the list? Any other things to do, because when you think about it, we've got 2 more months.
We also need to set a meeting schedule, which will be largely driven by the borough, but I
Right.
just want to put that out there. That's another thing.
Good,
that
that's
we'll have
another
to
thing
do.
on the list, Karen. Pat, you had?
Just the project list, does that break, I forget, it's been a while since I looked, does that break down the anticipated cost per year?
Yes, it
Yes.
does,
Okay.
yes. The challenge is, right now, is that we don't know about these 2 big grants until November now, so we're gonna be a bit behind the 8 ball, so it's hard for me to suggest or advise you to start moving forward with any of those other projects. Now, I can say that one of the challenges for creating that project list is we don't know hard cost estimates for a lot of those things. We need to get some master planning done, which has a relatively low expense compared to the project. So if anything, that's one thing that I would like to try to get just in their discussions for the next couple of months, to start getting those master planning so we can get an actual hard estimate on some of those big projects
Exactly.
while we're waiting on the Commonwealth Finance Authority to make those decisions.
Yeah, the reason I was asking that is if we knew how much it was gonna take next year, we could bounce that up against the $1 million we have, and then we can figure out
That's
how much to do every year. So that's part of it.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what's gonna have to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
We're fortunate to have that $1 million, but that's gonna go really fast.
Depends on how you schedule it.
Well, but the other problem is stuff pops up. I mean, Robbie could call in and say, we have a big failure in this particular area, and we're gonna start eating that money up, so. It's all you, Robbie, we're blaming you. Yeah.
I know we have on a table close to $10 million of projects we could do.
Correct. And I think
It's just a matter
your
of how you
list,
schedule it.
you know, if you can give us that list next meeting, I think that's helpful for us to see that like every quarter, actually.
Yeah,
So we know what's happening and what we have to pay for. Or ultimately, how much we have to borrow to do certain things. And what could put on a back burner, so. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Anything? Yes.
Speaking of revisions to the
Mhm.
rates, rules, and regs, Deborah had given me a list of things that we just kind of talked about over the past 8 months or so. I can start to work on something to that effect if that would be helpful for the November meeting,
I think
based
it
on
would
what
be.
we have.
Mhm.
I'm assuming we would adopt that at December, excuse me, but then you could at least have something to work off of for November. And then if there's anything else to be added at that meeting, we can deal with that in real time.
Yep, can
So,
you get that,
I will do
can
that.
you get that out to all of us and we can take a look at it, so we're prepared to talk in November and hopefully vote in December.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Edits? Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. This meeting is over. Thank you very, very much, everyone.
Yep.
Borough of Gettysburg. All please stand for a moment of silence and the pledge. pledge. All right, a few announcements this evening. There is a list there of upcoming budget work sessions. They begin 1 week from this evening, on Tuesday, October 17th. Continue October 23rd, October 30th, and November 6th if needed.
Isn't that,
Monday.
we kept it
Is
the
that
16th.
Monday or Tuesday?
Pardon me, I'm looking at the old agenda. There was a discussion about changing that, and we elected not to, so I apologize. The next, the first budget work session will be Monday, October 16th at 7 p.m. Okay, 1 week from yesterday. All those sessions are on Mondays, the 16th, the 23rd, the 30th, and then November 6th if needed. The vote to advertise the budget is anticipated for our regular meeting in November, on November 13th, with it posted for public review no later than November 20th, and an anticipated vote to adopt a budget on December 11th at a regular December meeting. An executive session of the Borough Council of the Borough of Gettysburg was conducted immediately following the adjournment of the September 25th, 2023 monthly work session of the Borough Council, consistent with Section 708A1, Section 708A5 of the Sunshine Act. Executive session will be conducted immediately following the adjournment of this evening's monthly general business meeting, consistent with Section 708A1 and Section 708A5 of the Sunshine Act, for the following purposes. 1, to provide information and discuss matters involving the employment and the terms and conditions of employment of current and prospective borough employees. And 2, to review and discuss matters of borough business which, if conducted in public, could lead to the disclosure of information or matters of confidentiality protected by law. All right, next we have our motion to approve the agenda. I would ask that this motion be framed as approving an agenda as amended. We received a resignation from one of our members of our ABCs, and that motion will appear in the Department of Planning, Code Enforcement and Zoning. And that'll be a motion to accept the resignation of Kirsten Demps as an alternate member of the Gettysburg Borough Planning Commission. So, do I have a motion to approve the October 10th agenda as amended?
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Lawson, a second?
Second.
All right, second, Mr. Moon. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next to our meeting minutes. A motion to approve. First of all, are there any corrections? Okay, we have a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Borough Council meeting of September 11th, 2023, and the Borough Council work session of September 25th, 2023, as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments about the minutes? Seeing none, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's coming, it's time. Trick or treat. It's going to be Tuesday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. Go door to door, and it's for kids of all ages. So have it be spectacular.
Okay. All right, that'll take us to public comment. So if you have public comment for items on the agenda this evening, you can use the podium, please. Give your name and address and limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Yep, now's the appropriate time.
Speak right here.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Nancy Smith Taylor. I live at 219 South Washington Street, and I brought a copy of my comments to leave here. Basically, I started this a month ago and wanted to go to other borough agencies besides the borough. I was told specifically to come here tonight, which was the next meeting. That's why I'm here, if it's not on the agenda. The property next to me, number 221 South Washington Street, was bought by the Adams County Historical Society, ACHS, which I'm perfectly fine with. I'm agreeable. I'm glad. It's a historic property that used to be the John Jack Hopkins home. Anyway, we have concerns that I have listed here, and I won't go through all my concerns. My main issue, and I have pictures of the houses. The main issues in my talking to numerous people, we were told not to bring our concerns, to come here and bring our concerns, but otherwise to not bring any concerns until we saw a building permit inside the window of the house next door. Well, my thought on that is our concerns, there are inches between our two houses that are like 4 inches apart. And if any work is approved without looking at the few concerns that we do have, I don't see how anything can be approved when we are so adjacent. We are so close that there's interiors to the exterior of both houses that have not been able to be touched or fixed. It's full of trash from before. There was a fence put up to restrict further trash in the area. And again, we have a shared property line, and I have many concerns, which I have addressed in here, which I don't think you want me to go over all the concerns, but my main issue is for the future Adams County Historical Society responsible renovations and repairs of number 219 with the consideration and accountability of adjacent property owners, which is not, besides me, other property owners, but there's no one that's as close as I am that could reach out of your window and touch and be that close to the other house. Also, currently right now, I looked at the house, the windows are again open, they're broken. I brought that to the concern of the borough before it was purchased by ACH. Squirrels have gotten in that house, birds have gotten in that house. They come over to our house through the attic, which we had to put a screen, but we're so close that anything that's done to that house, and I am concerned to the work and the air and the condition of our house and also my health. I happen to be ill. And so that's basically why I'm here. I think there's certain things that should be considered before anything gets approved, and I don't think we should wait until a building permit has been approved for work to be done. And I have a copy of this for the Adams County Historical Society. I plan on calling with them, but I don't have any right for them to say they'll meet with me. That's my concern, and I'd also like to know who I'm supposed to speak to about these concerns.
Okay.
Respectfully submitted, Nancy Taylor.
So, yeah, what I would ask you to do is leave your written packet you've assembled here with Ms. Marshall, who is our planning director. You will be dealing with potentially Ms. Marshall, our planning director, Ms. English, our historic environmental preservation director.
Who did you say, Marcia?
Ms. English, Deborah English in the rear seat there. She deals with the HARB process.
Okay.
So with the historic district items, but the building permits actually go through Carly's office, and we also have an employee, Karen Mesher, that does a lot of the processing of all those paperwork items. So leave it here with Ms. Marshall, and
So she will follow up with me, who I get in contact with, besides the borough.
We can accept your comments.
Okay.
that's kind of where we have to start. Yep. Because it could be a code enforcement. It sounds like there could be some code enforcement issues already that exist, which is Pete Griffey on.
Well, there are. An elderly, eccentric woman lived there before, and our door would be knocked on all the time. We didn't call, but sheriffs would come. She had to go to court, various things, but she would never answer her door, and she had a private door that I knew about, because if I needed to get information to her, I'd write a note and paste it to the door, where I knew because she never used her front door, but we've only been there for 5 years, and I'm used to dealing with township. We've always lived in townships, but I've gone to 5 different entities. And I was told I should go to Harb and speak. Well, the next thing I know, no, you can't go, we can't put you on the agenda. Your meetings, your comments won't be noted in the minutes. So then I was just told to come here. But I've
Yeah, I
talked
mean, the
to
first
various
thing to
people.
probably do would be to work with Mr. Griffion, who works for Ms. Marshall, that if there are existing code issues, particularly if they're impacting your property, those are things you have the right to have addressed.
Yeah, and basically, I just want cooperation. I want my issues. I'd like to be at a meeting and address my issues. That hopefully, I mean, because our houses are so close. Again, we've gotten all kinds of things from that house. And right now, the windows are wide open. There's windows up on the second floor, wide open, which I'm going to call well, I guess I'll have to call ACHS now tomorrow. But they keep saying they've closed them and fixed them, but they always seem to fall open again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Public comment. Okay, from there we go to current and old business, which starts with our Department of Planning, Zoning, and Code Enforcement.
Can you write your name and number so we can call you?
If you're in the room and you're hearing that noise, there is a cricket. We looked for it. We thought it was in the rain barrel, but the rain barrel appeared to be empty. So we attempted to solve that issue. But we were unsuccessful.
I mean, Chief, if you want to shoot that cricket.
Jiminy cricket.
That doesn't really seem like. Okay, I'm just going to go on. Ms. Marshall.
So y'all have my report. I just wanted to note that this month's planning commission meeting is canceled. We had one plan on the agenda, but it was a plan for acceptance, which they're deemed accepted after 30 days, and we were at the 30-day mark anyways. That plan is the subdivision plan for the Lutheran Seminary for the library. There's no land development component of that submission at this time. And we do have a town hall meeting to address the other item that would be on the agenda, which is the rezoning project. That's Wednesday the 18th at 7 p.m. in the Sterner building at Rec Park.
What time is that again?
7 p.m. And relating to that project, there's also a page on our website now, which is Gettysburg, PA, and it's /rezoning. It's also linked to from the planning department's page, the zoning page, and the planning commission page. And any updates will be posted to that page as they become available. You have several motions on your agenda. Do you have any questions about my report?
Any questions before we deal with the motions, which really focus on the sign ordinance?
Question on the sign ordinance, you want that now?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Question on the sign revisions, sign ordinance.
Okay.
The intersection of Carlisle and Lincoln, the old college motel that the college is currently redoing.
Okay.
On all that chain link fence, there are banners for the college and different contractors and everything else. Does the new sign ordinance cover that?
There are provisions for banners, and we did revise the temporary signage for construction. I'm not sure offhand what the verbiage is for
These
that.
are like, these banners are
No, they're
bigger than 4 by
big.
8.
Yeah, so
They're like the whole section of chain link fence.
I'm not sure that the existing language even allows for that.
Yeah, it may not. I'll have to look
It
into
specifies, currently, one of the problems is currently it specifies that this deals with like construction, right? You can have your contractor sign in front of your house, and basically, we are changing that to you can have a temporary sign that is a certain dimension or square footage, but it's certainly not that large. I think that's fair. It's probably not lawful currently, if I had to guess.
Been there for a couple months.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. Okay, so we have a motion to authorize the preparation of the ordinance, please.
I'll make a motion to authorize the Director of Planning and the Solicitor to prepare and finalize for intended enactment by the Borough Council a proposed revised sign ordinance in order to supersede, supplant, and replace Chapter 19, Part 1, Subpart A of the Code of Ordinances of the Borough of Gettysburg.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions and comments? This is just the preparation and finalization of the ordinance. Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and the next motion is to set the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to authorize the setting of a public hearing of the Borough Council to be held on November 28th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. and to authorize the provision of public notice of the hearing consistent with the provisions of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code relative to the proposed amendments and revisions to the sign ordinance in order to supersede, supplant, and replace Chapter 19, Part 1, Subpart A of the Code of Ordinances of the Borough of Gettysburg.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments about the hearing? All right, that'll occur immediately prior to our work session that month. None, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then I'm going to read the next motion. I'd ask someone to make it then. A motion to accept the resignation of Kirsten Demps as an alternate member of the Gettysburg Borough Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any other questions for Ms. Marshall? All right, Ms. English.
Thank you. We did not have any motions on the agenda for HARB. Our last meeting, Gettysburg Station did a presentation on the facade for the 7-story building, and overall HARB was very pleased with the design. They did have a few little comments, and they are going to work with some of those and address those, as well as lighting and signage. And I believe, hopefully, they'll have a new rendering for us to look at the November 15th HARB meeting. So if anyone wants to attend that, it's November 15th at 7 p.m. We received the grant money from Adams County Community Foundation and had another Rainbow workshop, which we had 21 attendees. 11 were borough residents and 10 were outside. Since this was an Adams County grant, we opened it up to Adams County residents. So it was very, it was a great turnout. We had 21 attendees and sold 3 extra barrels. So, and then we also will be presenting at the PML Sustainability Conference on November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at the Wyndham. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Ms. English? All right, Ms. Bissell.
Good evening. You have my report. I have the comparisons there from last year to this year, as usual, for the tickets and permits. I would like to point out, I do have the LPPs are back up in August. There was 43 of them. There's also 18 reserved spaces in the parking garage. I did attend the NPA conference and learned a lot of great things. And the revenue for September on the chart there, you can see it looks like it is the highest in September, and we were about 10,000 over where we were last year. As far as the pilot program, I ran the numbers. The signs were posted on July 26th. It was approved on July 10th. The signs were posted July 26th. The first payment was made on July 27th, and the total payments were $412.90.
Any questions for Ms. Bissell before the motion?
I have a couple comments I would.
Comments, okay,
If
yep.
that's okay.
It's
I
fine.
think it might be appropriate at this point. And that is, I think it's important to maybe have this, not discussion, but just comment and let the public know where we are, because we've had a lot of time has been spent in the last few months on the oversized vehicles and the buses in the borough. We have a lot of people that have a lot of concerns and questions about it. I think from our perspective, my colleagues here on council, we're looking at things from various perspectives, not just
vehicle transportation in the borough, but pedestrians, as well as the safety of individuals who are on the streets. And I feel that the conversation is not ended at this point. It's my opinion. I think it's actually a great problem to have. We have a business owner who's getting a lot of buses coming into the downtown, which we haven't had before, and that's a good thing. I think there are a lot of other towns that would be happy for that kind of problem. But at the same token, there are different challenges as well, and not all blocks are created equal. So I think the second or third block of Baltimore Street that sees some buses is different than that first block of York Street off of the square, where you have a bump out coming out from the Wills House. You have that east-west corridor from York Street coming into town, and New York Street going around the square and then going out Chambersburg Street is busy, packed, especially on busy days, busy weekends. And then you actually, I've waited in traffic like through the square for hordes of people to cross from the Wills House side over to the Kadori side. And I don't think it's not an easy solution. The end of September, my colleague Judy Butterfield and I invited several business folks in town who had vested interest in this issue, as well as some bus experts. We met, Max Feldy joined us from his tour company where he deals with buses, and also Carl, the new director of the Destination Gettysburg. They know a lot about buses. And one of the things that one business owner was talking about was trying to have 3 bus spaces, and Max Felty said, you can't do it under 4. You have to have 4 spaces, So do you take 4 spaces there? Do you put them at that end of the west end of that York Street near the Wills House, and have buses possibly sticking out as people are trying to cross? It's really fraught with a lot of, it's not easy. It's not an easy solution. It's not black and white. I wish it was. And I go back and forth and argue with myself, good person to argue with, but I do try to think about this from all different perspectives, and I know my colleagues do as well. We put out one solution, our manager put out a solution, and it was shot down right away because it wasn't right in front of a particular business. We're starting to see back and forth in the newspaper between business people, letters to the editor. You may have seen them in the last 2 weeks. I kind of was surprised that the Times actually ran the same person's, a different letter, but 2 letters from the same person in a week. I didn't think they usually do that. And I wish the paper would identify that the one letter writer actually has a business relationship with one of the business owners. She manages another business on York Street. So it's going back and forth. And like I said, I think we've got to keep in mind that we are a pedestrian-friendly town. We are trying to make that even more so. There's, we should not lose sight of that, in my opinion. I would suggest that we continue the pilot program. I'd like to see it continued, and I'd like to really collect and analyze the data. We didn't do that the first go around, and I really feel that we need to do it. And I would continue it right now. I wouldn't wait until March. I think October is a very, very busy month. Some people say, oh, there aren't buses, but today in the square there were 3 buses that went by in a 45-minute period where they pulled right up into the hotel, whether they were going to the hotel or not. But October, we can get the numbers from Ms. Fizzle on that. But so that's what I'm proposing, that we continue the pilot program, I think. And I wanted to put that out here because I think we at some point need to put that on the agenda to discuss again.
Okay, that was on the agenda here just in our work session 2 weeks ago, and
right.
We unanimously decided to revisit that in the spring.
Well, yeah.
The work sessions coming up don't lend themselves to an extra lot of activity.
I realize that with the budget.
Yeah, with the budget.
I just, I've been thinking about this. Not only did we have the meeting, Ms. Butterfield and I, but I've been talking to people left and right. People have been calling me. I've been reaching out to people in the community as well. And I'm sorry for the 11th hour, but I just think it needs, I think from a safety perspective, we need to address it. And I don't think we're going to please everyone. I think there are going to be people that will not be happy. There are going to be people that want parking directly in front of, a particular, business, or in a certain block, and that may or may not happen. I think the good thing is, I don't feel like I have it set in stone what we need to do, and in my opinion, and I think, and that just means that I'm not waffling. I feel like I've just been giving this a lot of thought, and I think we need more discussion on it. So, and I think it is really a safety issue, and we've heard a little bit from Chief Glennie on that in the past. So.
Yeah. One of the items that we discussed there at the end of September, because I don't want to get into a protracted discussion of this quite this evening, but is I think that our data collection could use improvement. It was really, and Mr. Moon raised this, it was one zone for all of these various spaces. And so I think in order to give time for that all to be constructed, it's really appropriate that we provide that time. But if there's a group of council that wants to continue it more or less as is, right now, I mean, we could do that if there are people that want to do that, if there's a majority that wants to do that.
I also would say one other thing too, is we do have ordinances for a reason, and I would encourage our staff to follow the ordinances, because I think we get into a problem. I think we have people that feel if they're given shortcuts or breaks, I think there's a sense of entitlement that comes around, so we need to enforce the ordinances once we settle on them.
Okay, so are there other members that would like to continue it as is in a change? And I don't really want to get into a debate at this point. Anybody? Okay, so I think you'll be revisiting that. We could revisit it as early as November, but that would be about the earliest because of the budget.
Great, thank you.
Yep. All right, so we have the motion there for the MOU with Garma.
I'll make a motion consistent with the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with the Gettysburg Area Retail Merchants Association Incorporated, GARMA, to approve free holiday parking for the 2023 holiday season from Thanksgiving Day through New Year's Day. Free parking is designated every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the holiday season, with the exceptions of Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, on which the days of the week parking will be paid as usual during normal metered hours. The designated parking areas as requested by GARMA are as follows: Lincoln Square, the first blocks of Baltimore Street, York Street, Carlisle Street, and Chambersburg Street, and the first block of Steinware Avenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Questions and comments about the GARMA MOU? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any other questions for Ms. Fissel? All right, that takes us to Mr. Harbaugh, Public Works. Sir.
Good evening. You all should have my report. A couple highlights on my report. First thing for the community, fall brush pickup. It will be the week of October 30th through November 3rd. Place your brush on top of the curb, not out on the street, or along the alley, and we'll be around twice that week to collect the brush. The bridge maintenance contract, we had a pre-construction meeting last week, and we set a date to proceed at September 25th. The three bridges that are going to be in the contract this year is bridge number 5 Constitution Avenue, bridge number 12 East Water Street, and bridge number 15 Court Alley. And I'm sorry, there's going to be another bridge 12 will have parking restrictions due to the contractor having equipment out there. So you should see a motion in my tab for transferring money into next year's budget. The reason for that is the 2 alleys that we were going to pave this year. Dealing with agility, scheduling conflicts, and paving conflicts to get the paver. We're starting special events here real soon. We're not going to really have time to pave them this year. I like to do them next spring, table them the next spring.
Okay, so this motion would take those funds from the general fund, put it into capital projects so that it can be utilized in 2024. Someone make that motion, please.
I'll make a motion to authorize a budget modification for the transfer of the amount of $50,000 from the Borough General Fund account number 1 to the Capital Projects Fund account number 18.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments about the transfer? Okay, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any questions for Mr. Harbaugh this evening? All right, going to Mr. Clayball, the engineer. Two steps. Now he's here for stormwater.
Yeah, he left.
He was expecting someone to pinch hit this evening, I know, and that person was ill. So, if anybody has any questions for the engineer, we can do our best to field them. Okay. Police Department, Chief Lenny.
Good evening. You all have my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions on it. Everything was out the first part of last week, so I kind of rushed to put that together. So Timothy Smith may not be there that's usually in there. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
But yeah, your officer's been doing some very good work recently.
Well, thank you very much.
I mean,
I appreciate
often,
it.
but yeah, some interesting little robberies and things like that going on.
I would add that our detectives did an incredible job in solving that laundromat burglary, just in tracking down video and tracking down the suspects, and couldn't be prouder. So, you know, we've been relatively busy lately, unfortunately, with some more serious items. The guys are doing a good job, in my humble opinion. So I'd like to send kind of a shout out to all of them for doing a good job, and I thank you for the recognition.
Any questions for the chief this evening?
I saw the one candidate we're possibly going to get a month early.
Yes, we looked at some timelines, and they're running a part-time academy at the same time. With our one candidate who's getting the partial waiver, I try to keep everybody up on.
He was federal.
Yeah,
correct.
he was a federal officer, so he gets a partial waiver through the academy. He has to do 490 some hours as opposed to the 900 whatever it is. But the problem is that's spread across the whole academy. Well, his final exam that he has to take for the third module of the academy was scheduled like the third to the last day of this academy, and we looked at what it would be in the part-time academy, and it was a little over a month sooner. So we arranged with Hack to take that. So if all goes well, we should have Cadet Lardarello here in uniform as a sworn police officer Thanksgiving-ish, as opposed to the end of the year for the way it looked before. So we're pleased with that.
Yeah,
That's great.
that'd be a good thing.
Very good.
All right, any other questions for the chief?
How's that incident coming with the, or was that assault on the square with the juvenile?
It's you know, for lack of a better term, it's solved. But when we're dealing with juveniles, it's kind of taken out of our hands and given to other entities for juvenile probation for one and things like that. So we file allegations with the juvenile folks, and then they take it from there. To the best of my knowledge, at least as of today, that individual has not been taken into custody yet. So, but the actor's identified, and charges have been filed, so to speak.
Right. Any other questions? All right, we'll go into the officer of the manager and treasurer, and it would appear that Mr. Gable is prepared to deliver his PowerPoint. Initial look at the budget.
Good evening. Before I get into discussing a draft budget for 2024, just wanted to add to my written comments to the council. Year to date, revenue over expenses, we're running a surplus of just over $294,000. So we are in a good position to actually transfer the funds from the general fund to the capital projects funds that you just authorized. To date, as of September 30th, there was just over $2.6 million in the general fund, which is, again, a very strong number. We have an additional $1 million in reserves above that 2.6. So it's budget season, and with that, we always like to look at some of the trends that we see here in the borough. This first graph is an 8-year history of pillow tax collected for Gettysburg Borough. You can see that the bars across, going from left to right, represent 2016 at the bottom and year-to-date 2023 at the top. Last year, 2022, was the highest year in that 8-year period of collections for pillow tax at just over $182,000. That's just Gettysburg Borough's share of the pillow tax. I highlight that just to point out we're actually busy. Considering where we were coming out of the pandemic in 2020, you can see that that year was half of pretty much any other year on this graph. And we've been steadily increasing that every year. And if you look at year to date, the top bar, 2023, you'll see the orange color there at the top. That orange color represents the month of August, and that is surpassing where we were in August of 2022. So year to date, we're on a trajectory to be above where we were in 2022, assuming things continue along the same trajectory. Similarly, these are the 8-year comparisons for parking revenue. You can see that again, 2022, there we go, thank you. 2022 was the highest collected at just over $1.13 million for all of our parking programs. Again, at the top bar, 2023 year to date, that, I don't know, what color would you call that? An off orange color? I don't know what adjective to describe that as. We are surpassing where we were in September of 2022. So again, parking revenue is on a trajectory to surpass the record year of 2022, year to date. Again, I say that only because I want to point out that we are a busy community. People are coming here to enjoy any number of amenities that we have. I've often said, folks don't come to an undesirable town on vacation. So we are providing services and amenities that people are really interested in consuming. This is a 7-year history of where our budgets have been. You can see from various years they fluctuate. Generally, there's an upward trajectory based on the services and staffing levels that the councils have authorized. You'll notice that from 2022 to 2023, there's a decrease in the budgeted number by about $500,000. That is all representative of the various capital projects that the borough it consumes in one year or another. This next column identifies the surpluses or deficits that were associated with each of those budget years. Green is a surplus, red in parentheses is a deficit. You'll see the only deficit recorded in our financial audits in that span of time occurred in the COVID year of 2020, and that was only $190,000, largely due to the fact that mid-year council dramatically adjusted the budget in 2020 and slashed the budget over what was actually appropriated at the beginning of the year. So you can see on the left side in 2020 in white you have 5.3. You can see council at mid-year adjusted that down to just over 5 million. We always use a zero-based budget model. Essentially, we start the budget every year at the number 0. And we build the budget around the various things and programs that the council would like to implement in the next year. Essentially, it's a list of priorities that the council would like to invest in the upcoming year. It analyzes by department the costs associated with providing those programs or services. analyzes developmental needs of each department. Through 2026, there are going to be ARPA considerations, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This budget will also incorporate some rather large projects that were identified in the Capital Improvement Plan of 2022 to 2026. It also acknowledges what we all are dealing with in our personal lives, and that is the historic inflationary pressures that we're seeing across the country. I also do like to point out that, and this is not an exhaustive list, this is just some of the types of services that the borough does provide. Some of these are mandated, for like fire service, for example, when we'll talk about Fund 3 in a little bit. We are legally required to provide fire services to the community. We are legally mandated to take care of stormwater. That's our MS4 mandates. Street cleaning is another MS4 requirement. We must street sweep our thoroughfares. There are some optional things on here. Economic development, for example, is an area that's optional. There is no legal mandate to invest in economic development activities. You'll see recycling is listed here as a service. We are a recycling mandated community, so that's something that the borough has to provide. So here is the next several slides go through the various departments that generate revenue for the municipality. Department 301 is our real property tax, so we're all familiar with paying that every year. This year, staff is not proposing an increase in Fund 1. We're proposing to keep things at 4.1770 mils. However, in Fund 3, which is Fire Services Fund, the Fire Protection Services Fund, in a budget workshop a couple months ago, we had representatives from the fire department who asked the council to increase the fire tax from 0.25 mils to 0.5 mils. And the council has directed staff to do that. So this budget incorporates that 0.25 mil tax increase, which would be specifically earmarked for the fire department services. Next, Department 305, you'll see your occupational tax, collected at 2% discount, face value, 10% penalty, or if you're multiple years delinquent, then that goes to the Tax Claim Bureau for claiming. 310, local enabling tax, or Act 511. This is where you find your real estate transfer taxes, your local service taxes, amusement admissions, mechanical device, your per capita tax. Those are collected at 2% face value, 10% penalty or delinquent. Same with the per capita tax. 321, business licenses. You'll see here, this is things for things like your regulated rental licenses, yard sale permits, transit retail, outdoor dining permits, amusement licenses, anyone that does a special event in the borough. This is revenue credited to Department 321. You'll also find the cable television franchise fee for the borough is located in this department. 322 is non-business licenses. So here we have land use permits, building permits that are non-UCC or building permits that are UCC. Sign permits, always a hot topic, and the council just earlier tonight authorized a revision to that ordinance. Highway occupancy and solicitation licenses are found here as well. 331, fines and forfeits. This is essentially where you have fines that are collected through police fines or parking violation fines, restitutions that are court ordered, court fees that are reimbursed, and some bank fees are also come back to the municipality. Interest earnings in 341. Much of our reserves are in either CDs or other long-term investments through the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust, which has a very favorable rate for municipalities. The next department is 342. If you remember back 5-6 years ago, the borough worked with Verizon Wireless to implement 12 small cell sites across the municipality, and at the top of a lot of our traffic signals, you'll see a small cylindrical fixture. That is a small cell site, and the borough does receive revenue from Verizon using our facilities for that purpose. We have federal grants in 351. This is largely dedicated to the police department for public safety. Here we have a recycling grant. We are, like I said earlier, we're required to recycle in borough, but we also make money off of our recycling activities from the state. So generally speaking, the borough receives about $9,000 in a grant from the state for our tonnage in recyclables. 355 is state shared revenue, so our public utility tax, our other public safety grants, alcoholic beverage licenses. We have the foreign firefighter insurance premiums, which the municipality is required to provide insurance for the fire department. The state actually helps pay those premiums for the fire department, and so you'll find that here. Also, our motor vehicle fuels tax is located here in this department. Local government units is our pillow tax. We talked a little bit about that at the graph at the beginning. 361, charges for services. So things that aren't typically tax related, if you will. These are services the borough provides various entities throughout the year. So you'll see inspection fees for rental properties. We'll see a lot of right to know requests, accident reports, largely in the police department. We have civil service testing fees, rezoning requests, and then we actually have reimbursements for charges for services. So every time there's a special event, for example, and the police department or the public works department has staff on duty to support those events that are above and beyond their normal workload, those types of expenses are then reimbursed to the borough through the event sponsor. 363, highways and streets, so AKA parking. You'll see we have various parking revenue streams. We have our parking permits, our residential parking program, RPP or LPP, which is a local privilege parking permit. We have revenue streams in Racehorse Alley Garage, whether that's through the app, the kiosk, or prepaid parking passes. We have 2 surface lots the borough manages, the county lot and the borough lot. Both are on Middle Street, actually across the street from one another. And we also have short-term, long-term, and rented meter spaces. Culture and recreation is essentially donations. So you can have a corporate, private, or a donation dedicated to the police department. COVID loan payments is Department 389. If you remember back in 2020, the council authorized a zero-interest loan program to struggling businesses to help financially damaged local businesses. Those loans are still getting repaid to the borough, so we have a dedicated revenue stream for those as those loan payments are repaid. Our facility fees, surcharge for folks and other entities, ambulance, fire trucks, those types of things that utilize our fuel pump station at the Public Works building. That was all of the revenue streams in the various departments. Now we go to expenses. So what does Department 400 pay for? It pays for the stipends of the borough council members. It provides mayor funds for fun things like coins and keys to the city, flags, decorations, other various gifts. Covers laptops, phones, software, etc. for the devices that the council members utilize every year. 401 is the office of the manager. This covers the stipend for the mayor. It covers the salary, associated payrolls and benefits for the borough manager, the HR coordinator, the accountant, and the borough secretary. Wanted to point out here that there are some staff members whose salaries are shared between the borough and the Stormwater Authority, because the staff actually is the support for the Gettysburg Borough Stormwater Authority. So the Stormwater Authority pays for 4% of the manager's salary and 20% of the accountant's salary. 403 is tax collection. This covers our elected tax collectors, fees and services. Next, we have General Fund 409, which is General Government Administration. So things like operating supplies that we all need to do throughout the year. This department pays for community media, for example. It will cover the costs of the newsletters that come out twice a year. In fact, everyone will receive their newsletter, I believe, on Thursday of this week, so 2 days from today. Covers computer, copier, video parts. Also professional services. So anything listed here in blue is tied to the capital improvement plan that I mentioned a little bit ago, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as we get into the various departments. So professional services for the Welcome Center, Michael Baker helps us with applying for grants. So we're going to have another resubmission of the RAISE grant. We're applying for a new grant for the Gettysburg Gateway Connectivity Project that's called Safe Streets for All. TA set aside a grant as well. And you can see that the other things like the audit, legal services, and insurances are also covered in Department 409. 410, the largest department of the borough. You can see that 410 covers everything associated with making sure that we remain safe in Gettysburg. So you have professional development for all of our officers, all of our office supplies, the various numbers of software that's required for crime programs. You'll see that there are camera systems here, body camera, investigative equipment, safety vests, and the uniforms obviously cover the costs of guns and ammunition. Sound like one went off right now. We also have the fleet management program through Enterprise, so all of our police vehicles are incorporated in this department. You can see we have, looks like 7 vehicles in this budget for our police department. Of course, then it covers all the salary, OT, and associated payroll taxes and benefits for our officers. This flow chart is not indicative of how the department is structured, but it's rather presented to show you that we now have a sworn department of 15 people as opposed to the previous level of 13, because council did appropriate an increase in the staffing levels. And this department will also has a potential for multiple security upgrades. We will not talk about the specifics of those publicly for obvious security reasons. 411, fire services. 413 is code enforcement. This is a dedicated department that we have kind of carved out of the planning department. Still reports to the planning director. However, we have some aggressive ideas on, maybe aggressive is not the right word, more innovative ideas on how to increase our code enforcement posture in the borough right now. We've been operating more on a complaint-driven code enforcement. We want to get into a more proactive stance and posture with code enforcement, and this budget helps envision that. Planning department, again, salaries, payrolls, things of that sort. This is also a department where we have an employee that is shared with the Stormwater Authority, so the Historic Environmental Preservation Coordinator position is paid 60% by Stormwater Authority and 40% by the borough. Emergency services here largely encompasses the stipend for the emergency management coordinator for the borough. 421 is where you find recycling initiatives and our trap neuter release program for feral cats. 430, Public Works, another large department. You can see we have a director, a foreman, and 5 full-time laborers. That includes a mechanic. This encompasses things like a rental of a boom mower for cutting foliage in the summer. You see the software, other types of things in here. On the right-hand side, you'll see we have the Enterprise Fleet Management Program here for 7 vehicles. And then we also have capital project here. This is a large one, the leaf vacuum truck, which is the better part of $420,000 in that neighborhood. $300,000 of that is covered by a grant. The rest comes from the capital projects fund. 432, winter maintenance, no removal costs. 433, traffic control devices. So this replaces some road signs and markings, lighted crosswalks, and pays some electric bills. 434, street lighting. 435, sidewalks and crossworks, covers the engineering for primarily two other large capital projects, a sidewalk replacement program, which the council is beginning to develop thoughts on how to get the borough's sidewalks up to an acceptable ADA standard. And also the Gettysburg Inner Loop. There is a project on North Washington Street related to that project where we do need to use some CDBG funds. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. Otherwise, we lose the funding if we don't use it next year. 436 is storm sewers and drains. The borough does not budget that, but it is envisioned in this budget in that both the borough and the Stormwater Authority work so closely together. 438, bridges, capital improvement program for bridge maintenance next year. 439, same thing. We have the Gettysburg Gateway Connectivity Project. We have received an $800,000 grant for that project. So the design and engineering will begin next year. A FLAP grant provides $800,000 of that. The borough's share will be an additional $300 and some thousand in change, which is the local match for that. Again, there's other projects here, Highlands and Johns, and other work on the inner loop as well. 445 is parking, obviously the salaries, benefits, and insurances for the parking department staff. There's a fleet management program here too. There's two vehicles in the parking department for collection of revenue in our meters and also enforcement of those meters. There are two proposed capital improvement plans in parking this year. One is kiosk upgrades in the Racehorse Alley garage, and there's also a proposal to implement a car counting system in the Racehorse Alley garage. Essentially, you will know how many spaces are available in the garage before you drive into it, so that you don't drive into it, find it to be full, and then get frustrated to try to find your way out. 454 is Parks and Recreation. This is where we find our GARA appropriation and the costs of helping them pay their insurances and utilities. Special events appropriations are found here as well. The borough is sponsors of certain special events throughout the year, and that's envisioned in this department. Shade tree, 455, pruning of trees, planting of new trees, various operating supplies. Community Economic Development, 465. This is where we find our appropriations for Main Street, Rabbit Transit, and the Adams County Arts Council. I would note that Rabbit Transit requires a local match from each of their local municipalities that they serve. Otherwise, they will not receive state funding. So just to know that if the borough does not support Rabbit Transit, the services could very much go away. 471, 472 is where we find our debt, principal, and interest. You'll see that the 2010 general obligation bond is stricken through. That is because all of those payments have been made, and so that debt has been retired. So there's two big loans that the borough continues to pay on. That's the 2016 general obligation bond and the 2015 PIB loan for the reconstruction of East Middle Street. 492 is where we find our moving of money around from one fund to another. An example of that was actually done earlier this evening, where we moved money from the general fund to the capital projects fund. Once that happens, any money that lands in the capital projects fund gets restricted and can only be used for the specific purpose for which it was transferred. So we know for certainty we're going to get some alley work done next year because council just restricted that tonight in the projects fund at the cost of $50,000. Overall, the general fund revenue projections for 2024 are just over $5.9 million. Fire Protection Fund, just under 250,000. Again, that's double of what it was last year, so that envisions the increased 0.25 mils. CDBG, 261,000 and change. This is actually revenue that is going to be presented to the borough using 2020 and 2021 money. Is that right, Carly? 2020 and 2021? Yes. It gets confusing because the program year is different than the year that you expend it, and there's oftentimes multiple year lag, so that's sometimes difficult to keep track of. Fund 18 revenue is envisioned to be $1.49 million. What that means essentially is we're proposing to take some money from the Capital Reserve Fund and earmark it into the Capital Projects Fund in 2024 for various projects that cost a lot of money. Debt service is Fund 23. This is essentially what the debt load for the borough will be in 2024. Capital Reserve, not a lot of revenue in Capital Reserve because that's money that sits there until council decides to earmark it over in Fund 18. So the $550 is largely interest. Revenue in liquid fuels, Fund 35, is essentially every time you fill your gas tank up, you have taxes on per gallon of gas, and so this is the borough's share of that revenue. Revolving loan, again, the revenue generated here is largely interest and repayments of our COVID-20 allotments. ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, the borough has received already its $3.1 million. So revenue generation in Fund 96 is no longer grants from the federal government. That is, 1,500 is representative essentially interest earnings. The flip side of all this on the general fund, 6.6 million proposed in expenses, 249 in fire, 261 in community development block grant, 1.5 million in capital projects. That doesn't necessarily mean it all needs to be spent next year, but it's going to be earmarked next year. Debt service, 641. Capital reserve. When we get into the specifics of Fund 1, we're going to talk about ARPA and how ARPA is going to be reimbursing the general fund for the provision of governmental services. And then ultimately any surplus created in the general fund gets put into the capital reserve fund. That's where that 1.2 million is represented here. Liquid fuels, we plan to spend about 90,000 of that on road work. Do not plan on spending anything in revolving loan next year unless council aggressively gets on board with a sidewalk replacement program, and there's policy options for council's consideration there. And ARPA money, $686,000 in the expenses. Surplus or deficits. So right now, based on our projected revenue versus our projected expenses, there is a $711,000 shortfall in the general fund. We'll talk about why that is in a little bit. We have budget neutral in Fund 3, budget neutral in CDBG, budget neutral in capital projects, budget neutral in debt service. Capital reserves is showing a deficit of 1.28 because we're taking that money and putting it over into capital projects. Liquid fuels, we have a surplus of 87, so that we're going to get more from the state than we plan on spending next year. Revolving loan, we're going to have a surplus because we don't plan on issuing loans. We're just going to start reclaiming some of the loans that were issued in 2020, and a deficit of 686 in ARPA. That 686 is going to largely be used to help balance the deficit over in the general fund. I want to take a minute here and talk about the capital improvement plan from 2022 to 2026. These are all of the projects, the large projects, and the cost of each one of them through 2026. And when council authorized this in 2021. The sticker shock on that was a $26 million figure. Not all these projects are going to get done, but the idea is to get through the list as much as possible with as much grant money as possible. So this next slide shows you what has been accomplished since 2021. That is in yellow and stricken through. Green is what we plan to work on next year, and white is what's still outstanding and will be done in years beyond 2024. You can see there's a large number of fairly expensive projects we're going to work on. Doesn't mean they're all going to be completed next year, but we're going to start chipping away at them. So the Gateway Connectivity Project, for example, we have our FLAP grant we just talked about. So that is why that's showing up in green. We're making progress on that capital project that's over $10 million worth of work. Sidewalk Master Plan, we will spend some engineering money on this to come up with a plan for the borough. Obviously, GAL Phase 1, B1 and B2. Public Works equipment that we talked about, the vacuum truck. Mayor Alley stream stabilization is on here. And there may be opportunities to work on other things as well as the year unfolds. With certainty, these are the projects that are in the 2022 or the 2024 budget. The Gateway Connectivity Project, the Welcome Center, parts of Gettysburg Interloop Phase B1, B2, specifically B2 as it relates to work that needs to happen on Washington Street, Public Works equipment, Bream Alley, sidewalk replacement program, some engineering for Highland and Johns, and also more bridge maintenance. There are other capital projects in this budget that weren't assigned in the 5-year capital improvement plan. I hear the cricket over here somewhere. It's really loud. So here you'll see there are multiple security upgrades envisioned here. Again, we're not going to talk about the specifics of those, just know that they're a large ticket item and things that may require prioritization over others. And so council will be getting the specifics of those, and then they'll ultimately be directing staff on what to do with those. If you notice in town, a lot of our street lights, our traffic signals, and our meters are looking a little rough. So next year there's money in the budget to get those repainted. There's routine maintenance on this building, the municipal building, that needs to get done, painting, those types of things. You'll see the racehorse alley upgrades that we talked a little bit about, and there's also a police drone request in this budget. So this is specific to the general fund only because the general fund is the largest fund in the borough. As we said earlier, $5.9 million in revenue is generated here. These are the departments and the values that are accomplished in each. You'll notice that the largest department is property tax. Again, for these purposes, staff's proposing to keep millage as is in real property tax in Fund 1. The other large, really large department that creates money for the borough, which helps alleviate increases in taxes, is Fund 363. Based on our trajectory in recent years, $1.15 million is generated in parking revenue. This is not fines and forfeits. This is not parking tickets. This is straight up permits, passes, and paying at the meters or through the app. In Fund 1, these are the departments that spend money. You'll see that the largest expenditure is in the police department at $2.56 million. And the next largest expenditure comes in the general government, 409, general government provisions at 388. I'm sorry, Public Works at 904, and then 388. So as I said, the general fund is not balanced as of yet. There is a deficit of $711,000. However, ARPA funds are not yet included in the general fund as a revenue source. So why do we have the imbalance? So there's a couple things. One is council authorized an increase in the police department staffing levels. So that will account for the better part of $210,000 moving forward each year. We also had a 7.2% increase in our healthcare premiums for all staff. While that sounds large, it's consistent with the current inflationary pressures. However, it's about half of where we were last year. Last year, we had to incur a 16.8% healthcare increase. So this is actually good news. It's still a large increase, but not nearly as hurtful as the increase in health premiums were last year. We also have a situation in our pensions where, because of market trends, the pension funds have lost value. And so there was a proposal to provide an increment above the minimum municipal obligation. So that is what's represented here. This would normally be $72,000 that the borough would not be contributing to the pension fund, but just to keep the funds 100% funded without any deficits. There's a proposal based on our discussions with council to provide that increment to make sure that the pension funds remain 100% funded, which, by the way, as far as government goes, we are really good in that regard. A lot of towns are very much underfunded with their pensions. And then obviously our debt service at over $600,000 every year. If we were to remove the debt service, the structure, and if we were to remove everything except debt service, our structural deficit remains at 390. In other words, if we were able to take out everything except the debt service, this budget would only be $390,000 out of balance. Again, we have a deadline to figure out how to deal with that. Every budget year I talk about a structural deficit. That's kind of been on hiatus because we have ARPA money now to use to help get us through the recovery of the COVID years. ARPA money will run out statutorily by December 31st, 2026. So once we get into budget year 2027, we will not be able to use any ARPA funds to balance budgets. So councils need to be very much aware of that looming deadline. So currently, this is our millage rates, 0.25 for fire, 29099 for general fund. And I break out debt service, that if that was its own separate fund, assigned a millage, 1.2671 mils is what would be required in its own fund to service debt every year. In 2024, this is what is being proposed. So you can see both the general fund and debt service remain neutral. And then obviously the fire fund increases by 0.25. Here's the ARPA money that we mentioned about in American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. If you remember, the borough received $3.13 million. That is currently sitting in bank accounts with the borough government. And to date, we've used just over $1 million of that. And we have just over $2 million remaining to use before December 31st, 2026. So, options for council's consideration to deal with not only the shortfall for next year, but to help get us prepared for fiscal year 2027. A small increase in the general fund of 0.1573 would generate just under $80,000. It softens the blow for 2027 if we do small increases each year up until that point. Or we could propose just to essentially earmark an increase that will pay for the salaries of our additional officers. 3, we could increase overnight parking rates in the garage from $12 to $18. So right now, the $12 rate essentially means you get a 24-hour period at 50 cents per hour. This would take that up to 75 cents per hour, which, and Becca mentioned this, that she goes to many parking functions throughout the region and other parts of the country, actually, and she studies this. And $18 for a 24-hour period is still, and people are not going to like me saying it, but it is a fact, is very, very reasonable. Travel to any other municipality that has a desirable thing to do in it, and you'll spend more than $18 a day to park. We estimate that that would bring an additional $100,000 in parking revenue alone to the borough. We have incremental increases proposed in this budget, so slight increases for RPP permits, RRUO permits, land permits, and fuel facility fees. And then, of course, we have ARPA that's floating out there to also just fill any holes that might still exist. With that, I conclude my first draft proposal to the council. Next Monday, you'll receive in your packets a detailed spreadsheet type document articulating this graphical information for you. So if you want to have any conversations now, we can do that, or questions.
So you're not planning on giving us the detailed lists out of the enterprise software until?
That will come next week.
So how do we have
We won't have it ahead of the meeting?
How do we
Yeah,
prepare
yeah.
for that?
It'll be presented in, you'll be able to log on and get all of that.
Effective when?
Like about when? Like I usually spend 4, 5, 6 hours on that.
Well, hopefully by Thursday or Friday of this
Great.
week. Yeah. Is that, I didn't realize that's what you're asking, what day you were going to get it.
Yeah, no, like
You'll
to
definitely get it
figure out where
before the weekend.
Yeah, to do my own analysis of where the big changes are.
Right.
Because that'll take a while.
It is a
That-
dense document, so time is helpful.
There's
It
a
makes-
lot in this
It
budget.
makes Monday's discussion, next Monday's discussion, difficult to be fruitful without the information
Sure, yeah, you'll get it
ahead of time, and
Thursday,
it does take quite a while to break it all down.
I have countless hours just in this already.
I got you, but we're the people that are responsible for that.
Anything else?
I have a question.
Questions? Yeah.
Mr. President, may I ask a
Yes.
question?
Please do.
Number 455, the shade tree expenditures. In today's Times, there was an obituary of a very popular and hardworking volunteer, Jane Scott. And she asked, or her family asked, in lieu of flowers, donations be made to shade tree. Do we have a mechanism to call out such donations, to keep track? And is there a system to acknowledge both to the donor and to the family of the deceased that this has happened?
So, couple things. If anyone makes a contribution to the borough, so you write on your check, Borough of Gettysburg, you will get a letter from the borough saying that you've donated X amount, and that is deductible for personal income tax purposes. That's point one. Point two is we do have the technology, the ability to create a program, if you will. We have a similar program for the police department for training, where we get the hospital grant. Wellspan gives $40,000 earmarked specifically for police training. So we can track every time that is charged down. We can do something very similar for shade tree.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, does not sound as such.
All right, thank you. I think there's a motion or two.
Yeah, or about 4. 5. All right, so are there any, before we go to the motions, are there any questions for Mr. Gable or Ms. Stahl that do not relate to the motions on the agenda this evening? All right, so our first motion is for the bills and payrolls.
I'll make a motion to approve all bills and payrolls for the month as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments about the bills or payrolls for the month? Okay, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion for the increase for Sergeant Runk.
I'll make a motion to authorize a COLA increase for retired police pensioner Larry Runk to be paid from the police pension plan effective September 1st, 2023.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any questions or comments about the COLA? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that takes us to the CDBG motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the Board of Commissioners of Adams County to submit an application for 2023 Community Development Block Grant Funds to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development on behalf of the Borough of Gettysburg.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments about the CDBG application? Okay, the county administers this, that's why this is necessary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next, the accountants.
I move to authorize the solicitor to prepare a resolution for adoption by the Borough Council at its November 13th, 2023 monthly general business meeting in order to appoint Mara Drusel, a firm of certified public accountants registered in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as the independent auditor of the Borough of Gettysburg during fiscal year 2024 in order to perform the examination and audit of the accounting records of the Borough for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments related to the audit proposal? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, and Susan Noggle and her appointment.
I'll make a motion to appoint Susan Noggle as a member of the Shade Tree Commission for a 5-year term expiring in October 2028.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to appoint Susan Noggle, reappoint her to the Shade Tree Commission. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, are there any other questions or comments for the manager, Mr. Gable, or for Ms. Stahl? Okay, that takes us to our liaison reports. Ms. Sellers, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Couple of things. First, I'd like to make an introduction as we start to talk about the Christmas Festival. In the gallery tonight is Bonnie Grady. She is our new Christmas Festival event coordinator that has come on board with Main Street Gettysburg. I'm delighted to have her. She has a huge background in community events and is bringing just a wealth of experience to this growing event as we get ready for it. We're about 6 weeks away. Lots of things happening. And we're out there coordinating all the things for road closures and sponsors, entertainment activities, games. I'm encouraging organizations as well as businesses to get in touch with us and send us your ideas, how you want to participate, how we can help you participate, get that word out. And I also want to thank the borough staff for all the pre-coordination that is already happening for the heavy lift that this and so many other events in the fall bring to our downtown community. So thank you very much for that. Historic Pathways Brick Program, we installed 175 bricks this year. I may have already told you that, but really excited about that program. 30th anniversary of the movie is this weekend. So Saturday's sold out. There's a few tickets for Friday. There's definitely more tickets for the Copperhead screening on Sunday, but lots of activities that aren't sold out and things that are going to be happening around the neighborhood with or without crickets. Anyway, we're very excited. Numbers are extraordinary. Lots of sold out hotels. Reservations have been really, it's been well received across the community. And I am particularly delighted to thank our partners in that. Journey Through Hallowed Ground, American Battlefield Trust, Adams County Historical Society, and the Seminary Ridge Museum. It's been a great lift with a group of those partners. So look forward to seeing everybody out there. Facade improvement program. is still in the works. We're issuing reimbursements as we go, as we work through DCED to process those payments. So you're seeing some of that work that's getting finished around town. Really excited. If you haven't seen the Lincoln Building on Baltimore Street, had a major exterior facade facelift in the last month and a half or so. The old awning is down. Some of the tiles that needed to be replaced have all been replaced and repainted with hardy board. Everything was approved through HARB. Really excited to see that facade have a nice refresh. Giving Spree is coming up, so November 9th, please mark your calendars. This is the first in-person event since the pandemic, so I invite everybody out to Gettysburg Area Middle School from 3 to 7 p.m. Come out and find out some things about all the nonprofits that are working in Adams County. There's more than 100 of them represented through Adams County Community Foundation. Of course, Main Street Gettysburg is one of them. We're number 65. And all the proceeds donated to Main Street Gettysburg will go to support grant matches for the Welcome Center. So I encourage participation, and if anybody has any questions, I'm always happy to ask to answer those. And the other grant that we're working on right now, also thanks to the Adams County Community Foundation, is a challenge grant. So we were awarded a $20,000 challenge grant in support of the Gettysburg Welcome Center. Getting really close to meeting that match, very excited. So if you are so moved, please contact me to make donations. We would really like to make that goal by the end of this month. And I'll take questions if you have any.
Any questions this evening?
Okay, all right, thank you all.
Mr. Carr was unable to be with us this evening. GMA, Mr. Berger.
Yeah, up on Hare Ridge, Mr. Geist reported that GMA is waiting on estimates and designs from the surveyors regarding looping the water main to build redundancy to maintain the existing pressure up there. GMA is also monitoring flows to provide that information to Buchard Horn to be able to provide the best outcome. Up on Cemetery Hill, the main part of the water line is established, and they are working on the final tie-ins to complete the project. Water lines should be complete by the end of the week. Then they'll have to do all the paving. Andrews Well, GMA is reviewing the proposed site plan along with the well house layout and design. Designs will be submitted to DEP for the approval process in the near future. And with the Interceptor project, Mr. Geist reported that GMA and engineers are reviewing plans for the proposed Interceptor Phase 2 and will soon be ready to submit it to the borough.
Steinway Avenue, the bid, Mrs. Butterfield.
Yes, Ms. Sellers is getting them all fired up for the Christmas festival and describing what's both been confirmed and is in the works, and introduced our new event coordinator, and Steinway indicated they're looking forward to working with her. It's an important time for Steinway, and another interesting thing, when we were talking about parking and how busy it is, almost every member of the bid board commented that this October, we're just barely into the month, but it's just, the joint is jumping. We're really doing a lot of business, a lot of tourism. Part of it's due to the lovely weather, and part of it's pandemic fatigue. But we're doing very well that way. Thank you, Jill.
Okay. The County Boroughs Association, Mayor Freeland.
Yes, at our September meeting, we talked about the needs of broadband across the county. And the pandemic, I believe, really hit home how we need broadband service that are equitable and dependable, especially in the northern areas and the western areas of the county. People had to stay home and school from home. I heard incidences where some mothers had to get in a car and drive to where they could get internet services. And also with more people working from home nowadays, we need dependable and equitable broadband services. That's fiber and wireless. And about 2 days after our meeting, and it's available, the county came out with their broadband survey. And it just talked about how people want fast and reliable services within the county. Our next meeting is November 20th.
Okay. Back to Mrs. Butterfield for the COG.
Yes, it was a surprise to me. The program for this month's COG, or last month's COG, was Gettysburg. And our website and our codification of our ordinances. That was the main theme. But they went through our website page by page, showing how well we do at presenting to the public what's going on and complimenting us. A point I wanted to make was, thank goodness I was there. I had no idea this was going to feature Gettysburg. But it showed to me that when we take on these liaisons, we need to really take them seriously. And a couple of the folks there had questions for me. They were soft questions, but it would have been embarrassing for me had I skipped that morning. So that's my soapbox is, let's get in there and take it seriously.
Understood. Habby.
Happy had their annual ride for trails on September 23rd, and it was really successful with a good number of folks coming out and a lunch afterwards at the rec park in the Sterner building. That's all I have.
Very good. ACTPO, Mrs. Butterfield.
Yes, again, ACPO does not meet monthly. Our next meeting is the 25th of this month.
Okay. Overdose awareness, Mr. Moon.
Yes, we have our medicine take back this month on the 28th. That is a project that is a cooperation with the police department as well as the DEA. It will be on Saturday the 28th in the parking lot across the street from 10 to 2. We accept all medications, pill packs, anything except IV solutions and sharps. Expired medication, over-the-counter medications, nutritional supplements, anything like that. Bring it all down, and we'll have it safely disposed of and incinerated.
All right. Trail feasibility this month. Recycling.
Yes, on the 16th, we had another highly successful covered device turn-in. We had 51 sign-ins, 5 no-shows, and 4 drive-bys. That is, people who were driving on the street saw our signs and our volunteers and turned in and said, if I run home and get my TV, can I come back and turn it in? And Robbie and I had a little conference on that, and we decided, heck yeah, go get it. We're going to go make sure you come. Again, the weather cooperated. I'd like to thank, as always, Robbie for setting it up and for the signs and barricades. Tammy Murdorf and Karen Mesher for helping with their cheerful countenances. You know how they are. And my fellow councilman, Chris Berger, and John Butterfield, too. He was there. We were all poignantly thinking of Larry Weichert at that time, who had not missed a single one of our events, and his passing, sadly, just a couple of weeks before this one. But it was very successful, and our next one will be in 6 months, so start saving up your broken TVs and computers.
Okay.
I had a question.
Yes.
Ms. Butterfield. Did I read that there will be glass recycling now? That's.
I'm sorry, say again?
Did I read that there will be glass recycling now that will be?
Yes, that is a county project. Of course,
countywide.
glass recycling is part of our contract.
Okay.
Yeah,
But we're just one of the
But I think it's worth mentioning.
few
Yeah.
municipalities in Adams County that does have it in their contract. So the other municipalities were jealous of us.
Right.
And Cynthia Salisbury, a volunteer, stepped forward and
Yep.
is honchoing that. This Saturday is their first trial between 9 and 12. We are not involved, we as the borough are not involved in that at all. But I suspect that if someone was just itching to get rid of some glass, I don't know that they would turn any borough person away.
And I think people have to take their glass there, where we can put it right out in our one stream, so.
And that has been the holdup. The state, the Commonwealth has a law that if you're going to do glass collection, you must have special fencing that happens to be very expensive. And Marty Qualley, Commissioner, was instrumental in raising that money, and the fence is now in place out of the emergency services building. It will not be manned 24/7. Volunteers will step forward and they will announce in time when those turn-in times will be. But the first one is this coming Saturday.
Thank you.
So you had the fire department and Adams Regional EMS reports on your drives. Elected officials' comments. Start down with the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I attended, along with our borough manager, the Pennsylvania Municipal League Summit that was held in Bethlehem. There was a lot of networking and finding out what other municipalities are doing through programs and presentations. One was from Bethlehem. They have a co-responder program, almost just like ours, about police working with mental health officials that will bring down hospitalizations or incarcerations and direct people towards appropriate services. So that was interesting. It was just a great time. I also have to announce I was on the board of directors and I am reappointed for the upcoming year. And on other news, the Halloween parade, the chief and I and also the borough manager, we've been meeting with people to talk about safety concerns for the parade. We have a meeting, I'm on vacation. We have a meeting tomorrow. And that's about all I have.
Okay.
Oh, wait, and we have another Eagle Scout from Gettysburg. How did it go?
Good, very good.
Gettysburg area. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to recognize and thank Ms. Bissell and Manager Gable for meeting with me today to discuss challenges of parking and bus relocation and answer many of my questions that I had. Almost on cue, 3 different bus companies pulled up in front of us and performed how they perform in the busy square so that we could study, critique, discuss. But thank you, Becca. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, I'm standing problem. We have buildings being gutted and remodeled and no permits are posted. 30 Mulmersburg Street is one, 280 South Howard is another. Serious renovations. And there's no permits posted anywhere on the property. I sent an email to Peter a week ago. He was going to get back to me. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. So, just those. And do we enforce, we used to have a property maintenance code. Do we still have that?
Mm-hmm.
Do we enforce it?
We do.
By complaint only or what?
It's generally by complaint.
Okay. All right. The other thing I have on my list is the elections. Been a lot of talk in the paper about candidates, one specifically, which prompted a lot of phone calls. Obviously, people do not understand that when you run for Borough Council has absolutely nothing to do with that. So for the television viewers and people who are here, people who run for office file a petition with the County of Adams. It is the Adams County level of government, the elections board, that is responsible to make sure those people are eligible to run, where they live, that they get the right amount of signatures, that the signature people are legal to sign the petitions. Borough Council has nothing to do with that. I just want to point that out because we apparently, there's a lot of people that think we do, and we don't.
Well, I want to be fair to Angie Kraus because she and Monica Decco before her do a great job.
Right.
But it's not really their responsibility to check them. It's the responsibility of someone else to challenge them. And we have had some because they have no ability to know all of those details about every candidate across this entire county. Anything for you, Mr. Moody?
Election day is November 7th. Please make sure you're registered to vote. Go to votespa.gov to check your registration or update it or request a mail-in ballot.
Okay, that takes us back to public comment. Please use the podium, give your name and address. limit yourself to 5 minutes. Public comment.
Scott English, business owner, 6668 West High Street. I want to thank you all again for the amount of time and effort you all put into managing this borough. It's not an easy task. I'm here to voice some concerns regarding the Gettysburg Station development and its impact on the borough's taxpayers. I continue to hear that the developers provided Christmas presents to the borough, but I do not hear how any of these gifts are going to address our borough's shortage of available downtown car and bus parking. Has there been any attempt by partnering with other businesses, the Gettysburg Hospital, to holistically address the bus drop-off pickup situation we continue to hear about at these meetings? Partner with the Gettysburg Hospital, other businesses in the area, and the borough to build the parking garage that was talked about at South Washington Street, a parking garage with public restrooms for those on Steinway Avenue instead of the porta pots. I also do not hear how the Gettysburg Station developer is going to replace the public restrooms that they're taking away while relocating the transit station. A new transit station without public restrooms? How do these lack of vision decisions fit into a sustainable planning for the future of Gettysburg? Let's look and work towards opportunities for collaboration with people and businesses. Echoing Ms. Lawson's comments this evening, parking is one of the borough's largest sources of revenue, as Mr. Gable pointed out. And it continues to be one of the borough's largest problems. I constantly hear when I'm out traveling, people in the middle of West Virginia, you mention Gettysburg, what's the first thing they talk about? The parking problem here. 22 to 30 more on-street parking spaces will be eliminated when the Baltimore Street Improvement Project, which is going to look awesome, is implemented. How is that sustainable planning for a municipality that relies on parking to exist financially? Parking revenue helps keep property taxes down and subsequently housing prices, housing costs, affordable housing. Taxes play into that. The Planning Commission members and those that are on the rezoning working group have suggested how nice Gettysburg would look if we eliminated on-street parking in the borough so the folks can see and enjoy the many historic facades. That'd be great. But eliminating on-street parking will only bring about facades with plywood over the windows as a result of businesses that are forced to abandon downtown Gettysburg. Please, let's be realistic. Finally, with the impending departure of the borough's planning director, please pause the rezoning effort until a suitable replacement is on staff so that residents and businesses can have an opportunity to work through a process that may see many new faces in the near future. Thank you.
Public comment.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Goodmestead. I am the founder and director of the Schreiber House Museum located at 309 Baltimore Street, and I'm here to talk about the parking. And, you know, I took a look over that original letter that I got from the borough talking about this whole pilot program, and it said something in there about the ongoing issue of bus parking. And, you know, I really don't know where the thought comes from that that's an ongoing problem. I mentioned before that the majority of buses that you see in town in the springtime, they are leaving the park, they're filled with kids, they're going up Baltimore Street, around the circle, and out to the first day of the battle. And then from then, they pretty much are in the battlefield. They're not really stopping anywhere in town. So I don't know that this has really been an ongoing problem. I do realize it's a more recent problem with the closure of Pickett's Buffet, for sure. A couple of weeks ago, I took some time and I walked through town, and I walked a block in each direction from the circle. And as I look at it, there really are not very many businesses here in town that need bus parking. There's the theater, and we've talked about that. That seems to be handled okay. There is the Schreiber House, and then there's now, of course, the business on York Street. But other than that, I don't see anybody else who's actually requesting parking in the borough. So I don't know that it's that big of a problem. And I think because everything is being focused on this one business, it's sort of like the tail is wagging the dog. One business has a problem, and now everybody has to change their parking. When I did that walk, I see that there's a parking for buses in front of the Teak Fraternity House. I can't imagine any reason to have a bus parking in front of the Teak Fraternity House on Carlisle Street. And there are none on Chambersburg Street. Makes sense, because I can't think of any business there on that street that really would need to have parking there. But I have two suggestions. I'm being selfish because I'm only looking after myself for something that I keep saying this, that I've been doing for 27 years. Two things I'm kind of hoping that you might keep in the back of your mind as we're doing this. One is I have been doing this for 27 years, and as I understand, when an ordinance changes, if you've been doing something for such a long time, you can be grandfathered in. You can grandfather me, no special exception. It's not that I'm more important than any other business here in town, but I could be grandfathered in for something that I've been doing for 27 years. The other option is, there are a couple of times a year that I need to go to the borough for permits. I need a permit for shooting rifles during the reenactment that we do every summer, and the borough's always great on that. I put up a banner for that every year. I need a permit for that. Piece of cake. Well, I've been told now that I'm not allowed to hold the meter bags like I've been doing for years and years and years. And trust me, I am the most honest person when it comes to those meter bags. I've never put them out for myself to bring luggage, groceries in from the street out front. I've never put a meter bag out because my brother's coming to visit and I'm going to give him a free parking spot. I put those meter bags out for buses, and as soon as that bus leaves, we yank that one. So maybe could you consider possibly giving me a permit? And somebody said to me, well, if we give you a meter bag and maybe you respect the rules, but maybe Joe Blow down the street will not respect the rules. Well, if I had a permit with the borough where we all agreed to something and I agreed to all your stipulations, and if I didn't follow those regulations, come and pull my permit. And I think that would be a wonderful way to do this. Because, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I had a bus at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, I paid to rent the meter bags. I got up in the morning, I opened the door, and there are the meter bags. Perfect. Well, the bus left at 9 o'clock. Well, the meter bag wasn't going to come off until 7 o'clock. So that means from 9 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the evening, those two meters were not able to be used. Well, now in front of my house, I have a big vehicle parking spot. Then the next two were covered with meter bags for buses that were not going to be there at all because they were gone at 9 o'clock. So it seems silly to me to pay to cover those meter bags. There are people that come to go to the doctor's office across the street, and I don't want them to have to walk any further. And so I pulled the meter bags off, put them in the safety of my office like the other bags that I've been doing for years and years and years. And I'm not going to steal them. I'm not going to ruin them. And I know there were concerns that they were stolen. 99.9%, if they're not on those meters, they're sitting on my desk. So I feel free for anybody who wants to come and pick those up, that's perfectly fine. But I'm hoping that you might just consider those two things. I would love to be grandfathered in for something that I've been doing very professionally for 27 years, or also that you could consider the idea of a permit so that I can continue to do it, not inconvenience the borough having to walk up and down the street a couple times a day to do that. Thank you very much. Any questions? Are you allowed to ask questions?
It's really your time to speak.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Public comment. All right, seeing no additional public comment, we will adjourn to executive session.